Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Are you ready to level up your team skill development? Well, Ballology is here to support you in driving accountability and skill development. The Ballology app is more than just tracking. It's a resource for enhancing skills, knowledge, and mindset across your program. Join coaches all across the country using Ballology to simplify training and empower your athletes. Let's build consistency, accountability, and skill development together.
One of my favorite questions to ask is about culture, and that I use that word, it's not that I hate using that word, but it is just, I feel like overused now, but it is important. It's the standards, it's how we show up, but not just the standards of your program, but how does your culture drive the performance of your team?
Yeah, like I'm with you too on the kind of any buzzword that's super popular, like don't really want to talk about it too much. Like even on our couple weeks ago, we had our first team meeting and I touched on it a little bit. And I think it was Kyle Shanahan's, the head coach of the 49ers. He said a good culture is just a collection of good people pushing towards like a common goal. That's basically like not word for word what he said, but I mean, that's pretty much what it is in my opinion. It's just, getting good people who you can unite in a common way to go after a common goal, kind of here. And pretty much this is my second head coaching job. Every job I've had, I think objectively people would say is a tough job or a hard job. So I went after tough guys. It's going to be hard to win here. We got to get guys who are tough. And that's kind of how I attacked it as far as kind of rebuilding these programs as people say, or trying to, at least in the process of doing that. But, just going after guys who really love the game. I think that's super key, because if I really love it. Like I eat, sleep, breathe it, go to bed thinking about it, wake up thinking about it, like if I get guys who are probably 85% of that love towards the game, we'll find common ground and, and build on that. That's really what we look for. Just tough guys who love the game, who can shoot it usually.
That helps. You mentioned that the two jobs that you've taken have been considered tough jobs. What is it about you that takes a job that some people would go right by?
Yes, my first job was Murray State Junior College, just in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. I was 26 years old when I got that job. I had been an assistant for 2 years at Arizona Western. I hope Coach Schumacher listens to this. And really hard after one of his assistant coaching jobs, like so hard. Tried to get him to hire me so bad, and he ultimately, went another direction. And I love Coach Schu. Like this is like he went with a really great candidate. And then 1 week later, I was offered the Murray State job at 26. Basically, like best thing that ever happened to me was that Schu didn't hire me.
How about that? Yeah.
So at that point, it's probably more naive than anything. Just I thought I was going to be a junior college assistant again, then got my chance to make a bunch of mistakes. And, we weren't very good for my first 2 years. We won 8 games 1 year, 10 games the next year, something like that. And just kind of a probably naive faith in myself to get things done and get the right players in there. And really, like after so I was the head coach at Murray State for 5 years. After 5 years there, like had, developed some contacts in the Division II world. And it seemed like that was my goal, to get it in and get my foot in the door at the Division II level. And, Cameron was the first one to pull the trigger on me and said, let's go.
Man, you're 26 years old, first time as a head coach, and you have an 8-win season and a 10-win season. How do you, because I think so often we talk about our players' confidence and how important that is. I don't know if we necessarily talk about how important coaches' confidence is. Like you keeping confidence in yourself and your ability. How were you able to do that those first 2 years as you're kind of building this thing and moving it along? What kept you going?
Well, I was extremely lucky to have worked for good coaches beforehand. So kind of got my start as a student manager at the University of Illinois under Bruce Weber. And then was a GA for him at Kansas State. So I knew the overall framework of what a successful program looks like. And then worked for 2 years for Charles Harrell at Arizona Western. It's a really good program there. And those guys put that jersey on and expect to win. They won a ton there, and kind of just through that process, just had some faith in myself. At Murray State, it was, you can be a really good coach, still not win games, like especially at the college level and really the high school level too, where you can't control what your roster looks like. It was more of, I call it hacking the scholarship system, just maximizing your return on investment in players, just like dollars and cents wise. I think at Murray State I learned how to do that fairly well, and kind of have continued it here. And those are kind of the main points that how I think we've got it pointed in the right direction. But yeah, trial and error and figuring it out. And I don't know. I always have kind of felt probably in all walks of life, maybe all industries, that if you just really work hard, good things will happen eventually.
And you've mentioned hard a couple times, and in your notes, you said that everything you recruit guys that are able to go hard. Everything that you do is hard. What are some of those things in your program that kind of stand out at you? Like, we're tough nosed, we're tough in these areas.
I think probably, I don't know, one of the areas where I think we're pretty good is like just like 50-50 balls, and we're a good rebounding team. And I think it really stands out. Like if you were to ask the coaches that played against us, really, especially this last year, that we go after it. And, we put them in those situations in practice all the time. So like we practice that. I know it's like, you can't really have like a clean drill to go after a 50-50 ball. You know what I mean? So like we put ourselves in situations where those happen a lot in practice, and we get good at go get them. So especially on the O glass, like we'll keep basketballs alive all the time, and get second chance opportunities a lot
throughout the course of the year. Do you ever pull back on those types of drills? When you start to get into conference play, like I heard years ago that Coach K said that when they get to conference play, it's all 5 on, like nothing bone on bone at all. Are you able to kind of keep those drills and that level of intensity going throughout, or do you taper off? Not when it gets more important, but in that conference play or post season time.
I hate 5 on. Like really, really hate it. Like I even said that in our team workout yesterday. Like it's a necessary evil is what I say. Like we got to learn kind of in a clean, perfect scenario, like 5 on 0, but like it's just not realistic. That's not how the game is played. And like we play a lot of 5 on 5, and like we'll back off of some of the things we do. But like we're playing full court 1-on-1 in March this year. I hope like that's what we're going to be doing. Like we're not. It's who we are. You got to practice who you are.
I love full court 1-on-1. Do you find that is one of those drills that just obviously offensively it helps you, but then defensively it makes you really tough?
Yeah, and it kind of fits into how we play. Like one of my sayings is no free walk-ups. Like point guard's got to feel you, but ideally below the block on the other side. So we work on it. I think it's one of the best improvements of like even just ball handling, skill, everything. Like we throw 8 seconds up on the clock, you got full court 1-on-1. We do it from a defensive rebound and give you a point for an offensive rebound. And then you reset, usually do it from a free throw block out. And we have one of those plugs that goes in the rim. It's really easy to get in and out. We work on it. You can't hide when it's full court 1-on-1.
Wait, so say that again. You put a dome or something on top, and then they play, and
yeah,
there is a...
So we have one. Yeah, so usually we'll usually do it from a free throw block out for 1-on-1, where I'll shoot it. It's going to be a miss. And if the offense can go and get it, they get a point, and then they reset. So if you're in there for a while getting up offensive rebounds, you get exposed.
Yeah.
We do it. I call it tag up progression. And I think we'll probably talk about tagging up a little bit. I had it in my notes to talk about. If we get to it, we get to it. But, like we go from 1-on-1 full court to 2-on-2 full court, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5. We do that, I would say 80% of the practices, not more. And it takes a while. Like it's probably, if you go from 1-on-1 all the way up to 5-on-5 ODO at the end, probably an hour of your 2-hour practice. But within that, you're working on, like I said, there's a ton of 50-50 ball scenarios. There's a ton of like, just go get it. And then if you do go get it, then you got to handle pressure from wherever you get it from. That's kind of how we play. Is how we play.
Yeah. To go to the offensive rebounding and tagging, you mentioned it, that being one of the things that really makes your program different, that you stand out. Man, I'd love for you to go a little bit more into that.
Yeah. So this was one of my like internal debates coming on here. Like,
what do you share?
Don't over to share. And yeah. I talked to a couple of people about it, and just like I was picking Zane Gibson was actually one of them. He's the head coach at Fort Smith, and they just left the Lone Star for the MIAA. And I called him. I was like, well, like, what what if I share this? Like, am I sharing stuff you guys already know that going against me? He was like, yeah, pretty much. And then, who else was I talking to about this? I can't remember. But basically, I think soon enough, you're going to see almost over half of college basketball teams tagging up. Basically, it's just a controlled way to hit the offensive glass. And then if you don't get it, you have your defense set from there. It's kind of like if you're to play pickup, right? You check the ball 5-on-5, guard who's guarding you. It's the simplest way to get matched up, right? So that's how we crash the glass offensively. Like, you go force your box out into the paint as deep as possible while keeping yourself between your basket and your man so nobody gets behind you. And then if you tag up on your box out and they get it, you're just nose-to-nose pressure jamming the ball from right there. So I think it's a great way, simple way to play, logical way to play, and it takes teams out of transition really, really well, actually, in my opinion, because as soon as you get it, you can't really advance it because I'm going to be right there in your face. Like, you're going to be thinking about me. Yeah. And then it kind of slows up. And gives you a chance to, if you do make some mistakes, whether you over pursue or, crash to the wrong side, crash to the low side instead of the high side, it can make up for some mistakes in that way too. So we send 5 and then we jam with all 5.
And you find you get more offensive rebounds doing it?
Yeah. So I don't know exactly like the rankings. We got over 40% of our misses as a program. I think it's the best in D2. I'm not 100% sure. I won't stand 10 toes down on that, but it's up there. It gives you some margin for error too. Like, I mean, I grew up in New England, Western Massachusetts, huge Celtics fan. And I mean, the way they kept balls alive and got second chance opportunities, like, it's the reason they beat the Mavericks, in my opinion. One of the main reasons in the finals. So yeah, I think it helps. It gives you some more margin for error too. If say you're off and not making shots that day, or just some things that you can't control in the game. But if you can get more field goal attempts, even if it's a lower percentage, you got a chance.
That 40% is huge. I mean, 33% is a really good goal. So you're way above that. Are they able to, let's just say the block out, the hit is around the 3-point line. If they can beat the guy and just go straight in, almost untouched, are they allowed to do that? Or do you still want them to get behind their defensive player, and just push them as deep as they can? Like, do they have the ability or freedom to beat the guy?
So we had 2 big guys last year who could just go get it. And those guys really don't have as many rules. And then we have a really good wing named Lavelle Broadnex. He's from Saginaw, Michigan. Who's pretty, I mean, I don't really put too many constraints on him. Just go get it. But other guys, especially initially, like getting that discipline of how to properly do it in the right spots, keeping your guy between you and the basket. Those are things that happen all the time. And like I said, in tag up progression, like, there'll be guys who over pursue, and then if you over pursue 1-on-1, your guys by you, like, you're going to give up a layup or a dunk. So just like, that's where we really instill those habits to where, like, you're crashing really hard, but at the same time, not giving up any advantages to the offense if you don't get it. So it's that like risk analysis that you're trying to get them to develop in real time as the ball's in the air, where there's a lot of other things going on. So we just try to get a bunch of reps doing it.
That takes a lot of discipline and control, I would imagine.
Yeah. And I mean, it is high risk too. Like, but there's probably gonna be coaches who listen to be like, I'm going to give up layups. And if you guys got guys who aren't completely bought in, or, you can't just have great effort with it. You have to have like effort and intelligence with it for it to work. And really, if one guy breaks down, the whole thing can break down. That's transition defense though, in general. So, just showing, we watch film all the time. I'll show bad clips at the start of every practice of, undisciplined tag ups. Like, this is why we're in scramble to start the possession, because you don't have the discipline to tag up properly, and you know what to do. Like, do it.
I would imagine it has to fit your defensive scheme and identity though, because if you're not pressuring the ball, if you're sprinting back to pack line, would you want to tag up, or would you just sprint back and just kind of prepare, almost like create that little show that you do? It makes a lot of sense when make or miss, man, we're not allowing free walk-ups like you said.
Yeah. I think you could be adaptable to where like when we tag up, we're pressure 94, we're flooding gaps and trying to slow you up, and then just beating your face and make you uncomfortable. I felt like at the Division II level, there was a lot of guys that want to walk the ball up, are way smarter than me, want to run their sets, run their stuff. And like, if we can just prevent them from the trigger spot where the PG has to get to, if they can't get to that spot and then they can't run that set, then like that hopefully favors us. So one of the just like little things to think about too. So, but I think you could still do it. Hit the glass, pressure, and maybe your pressure after you tag up is a little bit sagged off from there, knowing that that's what you want to get back to. Just not who we are, our identity. We just want to be, if you're walking down the street, somebody's right in your face, you're going to be uncomfortable. So that's what we're trying to do.
I like that. I would imagine too, it can create some chaotic possessions for your opponent when if the non-primary ball handler gets that first rebound, and instead of just having a free outlet that's nice and easy, some of those bigger guys, they're not very comfortable passers. And so if you're tagging up on the point guard and making that pass really hard, that big guy is reluctant to make it. If you can get him starting to put it down, like anybody but the primary, putting it down on the floor against pressure, that seems like it's a win.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of teams that depend on the PG to initiate any kind of offense. Like I think it can kind of handcuff some teams, but also, that like LCU had a really good forward named Tyrus Morton, and he could just get it and he was gone. And like that can be tough. That's where you need to have some help defense. How are you gonna rotate, and how are you gonna kind of build a wall? He was almost like at times, kind of like Giannis in transition. He could just go get it. Like he was gonna go get two if he had a head of steam. So there's some drawbacks to it as well, as any system or anything.
Yeah. And then depending on how, like defensively, how you feel, if you're looking for shorter possessions, a guy that's willing to do that isn't the worst thing. Because even at the end of the day, if he gets it and goes and scores, man, it's probably 6 or 7 seconds off the clock. We get the ball back and go. So from an offensive mind of like wanting more possessions in the game, I see the value in like encouraging their team all to play faster. And I always like to have a style of play that creates conflict with the opposing coach and their players. So if they really do want to slow it down, run sets, but players see daylight or an advantage that they think they can take, and there's conflict there, man, I love that.
Yeah, and I when I thought about like last summer when I decided this is how we were going to play, I thought like what really gets under your skin as a coach. And like one of the things that really just pisses me off the most is if a team goes and gets 3-0 boards in a possession, and like that'll tick you off. And then the players of the other team are going to feel that as well.
Yeah.
And there'll be possessions where we'll get 3 in a row and our bench is going nuts because like that's who we are. Like we'll celebrate offensive rebounds like it's a dunk. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah.
And we're going nuts. They're mad. And that's how momentum can swing your way.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.